Okay, next. Okay. We will start very soon. Just 1 minute.
Good to see everybody.
Okay, so the time is now 10:05. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we have the Hip Hop Project with Damien Sojoyner. He's a associate professor of anthropology at UCI. His research covers carcerality, education, and Black culture. His first book, First Strike, Education and Closures in Black Los Angeles, was published by the University of Minnesota Press. His upcoming book, Joy and Pain, A Story of Black Life and Liberation, and 5 albums will be published by the University of California Press in August of this year. This class, the Hip Hop Project, will talk about the origins of hip hop as a music and culture phenomenon. Utilizing key artists, the class will delve into the complexity and genius of hip hop as an art form. I'm just going to go over some etiquette and housekeeping rules. Please mute your mics if you're not speaking. Mr. Damien did say that you can unmute yourselves. If you wanted to ask a question, you can also just put your questions in the chat and we will monitor those. And other than that, Mr. Damien, you do have the floor now.
All right, thank you very much. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here with all of you. One day, I'm sure we will be back together in person and we can listen to this music and the great system that Cal State Dominguez Hills has. So hopefully today your stereo speakers can hold all of this that's going to come your way. I would like to thank Kathleen Solano. Thank you very much for helping with the technical aspects of it. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you to the curriculum committee. I really appreciate the invitation very much. It's always nice to share and to proverbially break bread with each other. In particular, thank you to Delina Jope Means. We had a lot of early conversations about what this was going to be. And Kim Pavajo, who, full disclosure, is my cousin. So hi, Cousin Kim. Thank you very much. So I'm excited about this. The way that this class is going to go is I'm going to share my screen with you. And there's going to be a lot of sort of back and forth. Hopefully, we'll see how it works with Zoom. Hopefully, I'll be able to see everybody as you ask questions. If I can't see you, please make sure that you put your questions in the chat if you do have a burning question, and I'll try to make sure to field the question as well. So hip hop itself, the last time that we had a discussion together, we talked about hip hop and sort of went through its origins in various capacities. Today, the conversation is going to be about Sonic. That is not the video game character. That's what our kids usually think of when we say Sonic, but literally the sounds of hip hop. Hip hop, if you think about the sounds of hip hop, are broken up into various schools. And those schools usually are determined by regions. Today's class is going to be pretty much specifically focused on New York, the birthplace of hip hop itself. And we'll go through these various sonic registers of how hip hop developed. And then, as you will see, probably because I've been informed that you guys are taking a great jazz class, you will see there's a lot of synthesis with jazz throughout the class. So let me start by sharing my screen. All right, can everybody see that okay? You just give a thumbs up and I know. All right, perfect. Okay, so what we're gonna do first is play a game that you all know and love called Name That Tune. The aim of this is I don't want you to name the song, of course, because that would be unfair. Because as I've done this with my parents several times, anything after like 1987, it's just been deleted from the memory bank. So what I want you to do is name the sample. That is, name the song from which the song derived. And I had many conversations with the elders who all around 1995, 96, all swore to me that hip hop was going to be a fad. It was going away. This ain't real music, that they didn't do anything themselves. So part of that is to go through that whole process of what it takes to form a sample, the sort of genius behind that. And then we'll actually get into the legacy of sampling itself. Now, I'm going to start off very easy with you guys. So I think everybody's going to be able to get these first few, and then we'll progressively get a little bit harder. So let's start with the first one, which is More Money, More Problems, but by the Notorious B.I.G. in 1997. So remember, name the sample.
Tell me who rock, who sell out in the stores. You tell me who flop, who cop the blue drop, who jewels got blocks, who's mostly Dolce down to the blue drop. The same old pimp, Mace, you know ain't nothing changed but my limp. Can't stop till I see.
Very good. I can see the chat is filling up. And as you guys all know, that is famously I'm Coming Out by Diana Ross, her 1980 hit. All right, so we're still getting warmed up here. So I'm sure you guys are all going to get this next one. It's by very famous rapper, MC Hammer. You Can't Touch This. I probably don't even need to play this, but I'll play it anyway. I'm sure everybody knows. Remember
you can't
this
touch
song.
this. You can't touch this. You can't touch this. You can't touch this. My music hits me so hard, makes me say, oh my Lord, thank you for blessing me. When I'm mind to rhyme and too hype, it feels good when you know you're down. A super dope homeboy from the Oak Town, and I'm known as such. And this is a beat you can't touch.
All right, and I'm sure everybody knows, as the chat once again was filling up, that is the one and only Rick James, 1981 hit, Super Rick. All right, I'm gonna keep on going. I don't think there's enough icy hot around. Want you guys to hurt yourself too much. Okay. The next song is Feel So Good by the rapper Mace from 1997. I should have mentioned before, Notorious B.I.G. is from New York, MC Hammer is from Oakland, and Mace is from New York as well, Harlem to be specific. You guys probably don't remember Mace, but I bet you remember this sample.
You ready, Mace?
Party people in the place to be. It's about that time for us to
Yeah, what you know about going out? Head west, red legs, TVs, all up in the headrest. Try and live it up, rock jewel, bigger truck, piece all glittered up. Stick a kid, nigga, what? Jig with a cut, sip crisp, spit it up. Hoes rock, get your nut till I can't get it up. I'm a big man, get this man room. I done hit everything from Cancun to Grand Tune. Why you stand on the wall, hand on your balls, lighting up drugs, always fighting in the club. I'm the reason they made the dress code. They figure I went wild when I'm in my fresh clothes. Dresses, I suppose, from my neck to my toes. Neck full of gold, baguettes in my rolls. Rec shows, collect those extra O's. By the E, get a key to the Lex to hold. East, west, every state, come on, bury the hate. Millions, the only thing we in the hurry to make. Whether from the ex-friend, intellect, or bins. Let's begin, bring this BS to an end. Come on.
Bad, 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 bad boy. You make me feel so good.
All right, once again, the chat is spot on. That was Hollywood's Swingin' 1973 hit from Kool and the Gang.
What you got to say? Say hey, hey, hey. What you got to say? Hollywood, Hollywood swinging. Hollywood, Hollywood swinging.
All right, now we're getting a little bit harder. Let's see how well y'all know these right here. So this is Dr. Dre's Let Me Ride from 1992 album, The Chronic.
What happened to baby? You look good now you carry. Long time I watch you, I want chat to you, and you go on like you don't want chat to me. So what happened, Dre? Tell me what the I go on now.
Creeping down the back street on D's. I got my cock cause won't these. No sooner as I said it, seems I got sweated by some with a 9 trying to take mine. You wanna make noise, make noise. I'll make a phone call, my coming like the Gotti boys. Being found on Greenleaf with the cut off. I'm straight, so listen to the play-by-play, day by day. Rolling in my phone with 16 switches. And got sounds for the cocking all the riches. Got the hollow points for the snitches. So won't you just walk on by? Cause I'm too hard to lift. And no, this ain't Aerosmith. It's the DRE from the CPT. On a riding spree, a straight G. Hop back as I pop my top, you trip. I let the hollow voice commence to pop, 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 yeah. Cause if it don't stop, I have to put my shit in reverse. Go back and take another spot. Cause I'm rolling in my 6-4. With all the saying. Hell yeah. With all the saying. Hell yeah. Just another day for Dre, so I
Okay, so I see one response in the chat. Hopefully that hook. I thought that hook was going to be a giveaway. The name and the artist. I mean, name and artist, the same thing. Name of the song and the artist. Any guesses? You could take yourself off mute. You guys are so good. Muting yourselves and whatnot. No guesses?
Just as she said.
Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah.
So that was Mothership Connection, Star Child by Parliament. Now, the brilliance of that sample is the beginning of that song sounds nothing like the middle of that song, right? So the beginning of that song is like this.
Well, all right. Star Child, citizens of the universe, recording angels. We have returned to claim the pyramids. Partying on the mothership. I am the Mothership Connection. Getting down in 3D. Light year grooving. Well, all right. You hear the noise? Ain't nobody but me and the boys. Get down.
And what Dr. Dre did was he took a very small snippet of that song, way around the 5.5 minute mark of that song, which I'll advance right here, get to like 5:20.
Light years in time, ahead of our time. Free your mind and come fly with me. It's hip on the mothership. Cruising, starting.
Let me ride. Slow down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride.
And he made a hit out of just that 10-second loop of that song. All right, let's give it another one. Uh-oh, something's happening with the Zoom here.
Mic check. I can get smooth to any groove.
This is Tonight's the Night by Redman, 1992.
Back a bit like Janet Jackson. She's asking if I can slam it up.
Yo, Red, man. Get off that punk smooth crap, man. Get with that real deal. Word bar, you know how we do.
Mic check. I walk around the street with the black tech now by the waistline, kicking the hype skits. I never claimed to be the best type of rapper, but have to show my black peoples what I'm after. I'm after the gold, then after that the platinum. Beef after that, Hurricane G packs the gas, son. Chicken bang bang, yo bust the slang with my name. It's the red man on the funk thing. Suck your mother effing right tonight. To do what I wanna do, to do it like dynamite. Do it perfected when the funk been injected. I roughen up the rough rap till like make your head split. Past the 40 and the.
All right, any guesses? Any guesses? Anybody? I
No
see
guesses.
people's mouths moving.
No.
What's that?
No guesses.
None? I've never heard this group of people not say something at all. This is a first. What's today? Today is March. This is a day in Black history. I've never, ever heard this happen before. It sounds familiar, but I can't remember the name. All right. That was, of course, Isaac Hayes.
Oh, yeah.
A Few More Kisses to Go, 1979 hit. And as soon as you hear it, you're going to be like, oh, yeah.
Tonight's the night. The time is right for the thing I've waited for so long. I finally got you where I want you, girl. The fire of my desire is burning strong. I feel your heart beating like a drum.
Miss Peggy Barton said in the chat, they made that sample faster. If they slowed it down, I might have got it, which is correct. So this is the beauty of sampling, which is that you can make a song your own by manipulation, and it turns into something else. Of course, recognizing where the song came from. But this gets into the complexity of hip hop itself, which is to take something and create a whole new art form out of something else. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to attempt to do this. We'll see how it works. We're going to break up into breakout rooms. Before we do that, I'm going to play 5 songs. You guys are going to work together in your breakout rooms as teams to come up with the original song that's underlying all of these songs about to play. So it's 5 songs. So I want you guys to think very deeply about this, and then we'll break out into breakout rooms, and then we'll come back together, okay? So the first song is very, very famous, It Takes Two by Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. This is a hit. You put this on any club right now, and the dance floor will go crazy. I may be dating myself, but at least I think so. So here we go.
Right about now, you're about to be possessed by the sounds of MC Raw Face and DJ Easy Rock.
Hit it!
And I should say, don't put anything in the chat right now. Just keep all your answers to yourself right now, and then your working group. So keep the chat on mute for a second.
And I came to get down. I'm not internationally known, but I'm known to rock the microphone because I get stupid.
Okay, so that's the first one. Here's the second one. This is Total Can't You See from their 1995 hit.
You just don't know what you do to me.
Bad.
Give me all the chicken heads from Pasadena to Medina. Bet big, get in between your dents. Get the prognosis, doses, blends and bends like Twizzlers. Biggest fitting to hurt, what's under that skirt? Who filling them with octane? Got them gassed up, about to get blasted up, son. The last one wrote the mother, brother miss him. I seen it when he kissed him at the wake, made his body shake. The high guy in 850 eyes, smoke tint, rap terror, for chrome and terror. Street five by the rivers, the fifth is conspicuous. Bad boy slipped in 95, ridiculous. My rap lines is like landmines. One step, kaboom, black suits fill the room. To whom it may concern, Junior Mafia is the click. Act up, I have my honey's total busting.
That's right.
In the middle of the day now, baby, I seem to think of only you.
All right. And this is Childish Gambino, also known as Donald Glover. 2016 hit Redbone. All right. LL Cool J, probably known more as an actor now than as a rapper, but 1990 had a huge hit called Mama Said Knock You Out.
Come on, man. And with the local DBC news, LL Cool J with a triumphant comeback. More a solo. But tonight,
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. I'm rocking my pants, putting suckers in fear, making the tears rain down like a monsoon. Listen to the bass go boom, explosion, overpowering over the competition. I'm towering, wrecking shop. When I drop these lyrics that'll make you call the cops. Don't you dare stare. You better
we'll stop right there. And then we will, hopefully these breakout rooms will work.
That
Going to breakout.
4 songs or
Yes.
5?
I thought, let me see here.
I saw 4.
It was 4? Okay, yeah. So then it's
I have
4.
4. Okay.
Yep, that's perfect. Thank you for that. Okay, so we'll enter into breakout rooms. Let's see, how many of us are there on the Zoom? 31. All right. So we'll make, let's say, 5 breakout rooms. All right. And then we'll come back in, let's say, 5 minutes and have a discussion. All right, I think everybody is back now. So I will go back to sharing my screen again so we can listen, and then we'll have each of the groups try to battle it out to see who reigns supreme in classic hip hop form. Okay, so let's see here. We have It Takes Two. We'll play it one more time.
Right about now, you're about to be possessed by the sounds of MC Rawface and DJ Easy Rock.
Hit it.
Okay, any let's see, let's start with room one or group one. What you guys have? Do you guys remember? Well, first of all, do you guys remember what rooms you were in or no?
Yeah,
Should've-
No.
I should have put that out there as a prerequisite.
Well, it's here number
Now-
one. So
I don't know.
Now,
Yeah.
luckily, Zoom does a good job of keeping track. So room one has let's see, JL Jones, Joyce Range. I apologize if I say your name incorrectly. I'm sorry about that. Paulette Bradley, Peggy Barton, Sammy Jones, and Dorita Joy Murphy. Anybody from that group have a guess?
yes,
Okay, let's hear.
it's Think by Lynn
Uh,
Young, Lynn Collins.
Think about Lynn Collins. Okay, that is an excellent choice. Room two. Let's see, Alicia Greathouse, Donna LaCour, Eula Slater.
We agree. It is Lynn Collins.
You agree? Okay. Room three, Anissa Barton Thompson, Belinda Mosler, Denise Schneider McLeod.
We agree.
You agree? Okay, everybody agrees. I see how this is gonna go. Room four, Debbie Adams, Delina Donald Means, Denise Jefferson Roberts, Dorothy Teja. Early in it. Same.
We
I
agree.
do that. You agree? I'm
Yeah.
guessing room five agrees too, right?
Oh,
This is
yeah, we
how-
agree.
Of course.
All right. Here we go. Okay. So of course it is Think by Lynn Collins. But did you know who produced that?
James Brown.
James
Brown.
Brown.
Side.
I'm sure.
Yeah, somebody in our group heard a little.
I'm sure. Now, I'm ashamed because we have a lot of teachers that are in this group. I know a lot of teachers, retired teachers, they're in this group, and I know y'all cheated and used Google.
We did. We
Which
said we
is a
weren't
shame.
going
We did not
to. We said
cheat.
we know they're going to cheat, but we're not going to cheat.
Every last one of them.
I should tell the truth. I cheated. Yeah.
We know you cheated, Peggy.
The rule didn't say you could.
And you couldn't
Resources. Resources.
See,
Here we go, Belinda.
We started to do that. We changed our mind. We said we weren't going to cheat.
What group were we?
Yeah, we were the only honest
group.
Yeah, we were the honest.
Thank you. Honesty
Were
goes
you-
a long way.
Were you?
Are you really though?
Resources.
All right, here we go.
That's all I
So we'll play this the sample right here.
Hey fellas, I'm talking to you and you too. Do you guys know who I'm talking to? Those of you who go out and stay out all night and have the next day. Expect us to be home when you get there. But let me tell you something, the sisters are not going for that no more. Cause we realize two things, that you aren't doing anything for us, that we can better do by ourselves. So from now on, we're gonna use what we got to get what we want. So you'd better think. There was a time when we had respect. That's the thing I never will forget. Now, baby, I got a life to live and a whole lot of love that I wanna give.
Okay. All right. So let's keep the party going. You guys remember this one?
You just don't know what you do to me.
Bad
Give me all the chicken heads from Pasadena to Medina. Bet big, get in between your then see the prognosis, doses, blends and bends like Twizzler.
Okay. So we'll start with group 5 this time.
Well, we think it's James Brown's song. We really didn't want to cheat, so we don't know the name of it.
Well, thank you for not cheating, and thank you for being honest. Appreciate that. Group 4.
It's James Brown, and I could hear the Big Payback.
The Big Payback? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we were thinking about that.
I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were.
Too late.
Group 3.
Using our resources, we agreed.
You agree? Group 2.
Crickets.
Group 2.
Yeah,
That is.
We agree.
You agree? Okay. Thank you. And group 1.
We agree.
You agree. All right.
That's just to say they didn't know.
I can see how this is going. It is indeed James Brown's 1973 hit, Payback.
Hey! Got to pay back. Revenge. I'm mad. Got to get back. I need some get back. Pay back. Pay back. That is. Pay back. Revenge. I'm mad to get down with my girlfriend. That ain't right. Wow.
Okay. So let's keep the party going. You guys remember this one? This is Redbone by Childish Gambino. Okay, let's start with group 2 this time, which is Alicia Greathouse, I apologize if I said that wrong. Donna LaCour, Eula Slater, Kim Pavajo, and Sherry Small. I apologize if I said it wrong. And you can also use the chat for the groups as well.
Well, Cherie, I think she might have, she knew it, and but I think her connection might be bad.
Oh, okay. It might be bad. Okay.
It was, let's see, it was Bootsy Collins.
Bootsy
Sorry.
Collins?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd rather be, I wrote it down what she said, and I can't read my writing.
All right. I have that same problem. All right, group 3.
Rather be with you. Ooh, yeah.
All right, y'all singing now. Okay, that's all right. If it feels good, go ahead. Group 4.
Bootsy.
All right, group 5. Bootsy.
Bootsy.
All right. Bootsy, and group 1 I'm taking is Bootsy as well.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. That is Bootsy Collins' 1976 hit, I'd Rather Be With You. Now I got the hook up on a COVID booster. If you could tell me who the producer was of that song. Anybody have any guesses who produced I'd Rather Be With You?
Oh no.
Grandmaster Flash. I don't know.
Are you talking about Ludwig?
What about James Brown?
James Brown. That's right. James Brown produced I'd
okay.
Rather Be With You by Bootsy Collins. If you remember, Bootsy played in James Brown's band before leaving to go play with Parliament for a stint, and then eventually went solo after that. So it's
James
long
Brown was
connections to
producing
James
everything.
Brown.
Now, which group was that just answered?
That was, let's see here. I could tell you.
Very
That was
first-
group 5.
No, that was
Very first group to
David
get-
did
group
say
two.
that he was
Group
just
two.
muted. That's all.
It was group 2 that answered first.
I thought that was our group.
It was us.
Group
It was
2.
group 5. That was
It was
me.
That was
it
us.
was group 5. It was
It was group 2.
No, it was group 3.
Question
We all got
is,
it.
Brown, the James Brown thing.
the James,
James
Brown,
Brown-
thing. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, the one that answered James Brown.
That was group
That
5.
was-
I'm
That
sorry.
was group 5. Yeah,
Thank
that was
you.
group 5.
Fine, but
I
we
got one right.
Who's in that?
That was from the only reason why I know that is because I know that voice. That's my godmother, Herbertine's voice, and I could pinpoint that voice out of a crowd of 1,000 people.
Thank
So I knew
you.
immediately who that was.
Thank you.
I thought that was our group.
Okay.
Sorry, I asked the question.
All right. Mama Said Knock You Out. 1990 hit by LL Cool J.
Come on, man. And with the local DBC news, LL Cool J with a triumphant comeback. More solo. But tonight, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. I'm rocking my pants, putting suckers in fear, making the tears rain down like a monsoon. Listen to the bass go boom, explosion. Overpowering over the competition. I'm towering, wrecking shop. When I drop these lyrics that'll make you call the cops.
Okay. So now at this point, I think we could just shout out guesses instead of going through group by group, because I see what y'all are doing. Y'all just piggybacking off each other, which I would do the same thing in that situation. So any guesses as to the sample of there's
Sly
two
and the Family Stone.
Sly and the Family Stone? Yep. Do you guys remember the name of the song by any chance?
Trip to Your Heart.
Trip to Your Heart. Now, there's a second sample that's underneath there.
Funky Drummer by James Brown.
There you go. There you go. Man, you guys are good. You guys are really good. Or you're good at Google, 1 or 2. So we got Sly and the Family Stone. You guys remember this one?
I'd be turning that off.
I got a ticket for you. I know you need affection. I got affection for you.
And then, of course, we had Funky Drummer by James Brown, 1970. Now, the key is that sample does not come at the beginning of the song at all.
Go.
Rather, you have to go all the way, very similar to the Parliament song, to the 5.5 minute mark.
1, 2, 3, 4, get it. Ain't it funky? Ain't it funky?
Ain't it funky?
And the third sample, that's right, the third sample, as was stated in the chat, is Gangsta Boogie as well. Now, this sample right here, Funky Drummer 1970 from James Brown, is the most sampled song in the history of music, not just hip hop, in the history of music. That break right there is the most sampled song ever. The question I have for you is, who is the drummer that is playing that sample? Any guesses at all? The most sampled song ever.
It's not Maceo, is it?
That's what Donna was saying.
Oh yeah,
It's not-
Maceo, yeah.
It's not Maceo Parker. No, it's not Maceo Parker.
Who else? I put you out there, Donna.
Is he a jazz drummer?
Is he a jazz drummer? No, I don't think he would have considered himself to be a jazz drummer.
It's not.
It's Clyde Stubblefield is his name.
Oh, that's the guy from Motown.
So Clyde Stubblefield, who probably that break itself is the most recognized break in the history of music, is probably also the least recognized person, which is a shame. Because when Clyde Stubblefield passed away, he was extremely destitute, and not extremely, but not as well off as he should have been. So much so that he couldn't pay his medical bills. Prince, as a matter of fact, had to pay his medical bills when he passed away. The reason why I bring that up is because of how the music business operates, which is that Clyde Stubblefield was paid on a per gig basis, but he didn't receive any of the royalties from that breakbeat itself. And there's a wonderful interview where Clyde Stubblefield explained how a lot of those James Brown songs were made.
That was like a... Thank you. We would be in the studio just sitting around. I start off something like that, and the bass player join in. Then the guitar player come in, and the horns wouldn't do nothing. We just have a groove going. And so Brown come in and says, "Hey, let's make a song out of that." So we already have the rhythm, and so he starts singing, "I don't care," and then the horns come in. We got a song. Nobody playing it. It wasn't a plan, it was just a groove that he started singing on. That's mainly all his songs was a groove. Right. And he had about when the time I joined him, he had about 3 or 4 songs that was a planned song. But I didn't play the planned songs because I didn't want to. Jabo played them there, the drummer, but mainly the drums I played was just a jam tune when we'd be in the studio just jamming before he got there. Then we come in and say, let's put a tune in, let's put oh, you're going to do the funky drummer. That's a funky drummer then. We'll make that the funky drummer. I said, cool, I had no idea. I want to ask you.
All right. Now, as we transition to these various sounds and thinking about that James Brown song that was made popular by Clyde Stubblefield on drums, the notion of sounds originating from particular regions is very important. So coming out of New York, there's a collective of artists known as the Native Tongues. They begin to form in the late 80s and early 90s, and they have a very distinctive sound. They use a lot of James Brown in their backbeats, but importantly, they use a lot of jazz, a whole bunch of jazz. The groups here that are posted are from left to right. We have A Tribe Called Quest. Beneath them, we have Black Sheep. Then we have De La Soul. We have the Jungle Brothers. Above, who I'm sure everybody recognizes, is Queen Latifah. And then to the right of Queen Latifah is Moni Love. Their distinctive sound would set a particular type of pattern in terms of using jazz as a very influential aspect of forming hip hop music. So one of the most popular songs put out by Tribe Called Quest in 1991 was a song by the name of Scenario. Very, very popular song that came out. We'll play it real quick.
Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario?
Ayo, Bo knows this, and Bo knows that. But Bo don't know jack, cause Bo can't rap. Well, what do you know? The D-Dog is first up to bat. No batteries included and no strings attached. No holds barred. No time for move faking. Got to get to loose so I can bring home the bacon. Brothers front, they say the drop can't flow, but we've been known to do the impossible like Broadway Joe, so.
And I should note that this album, The Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest, although they had an album out previously, People's Instinctive Visions and Travels, this particular album, The Low End Theory, set a whole new tone and wave of understanding hip hop and the direction that hip hop was going. The incorporation of jazz as the strong backbeat of this album influenced a whole generation of artists, in particular of this region as well. So the underpinning of that song is, if you guys, I don't know if you guys remember the jazz artist brother Jack McDuff had this song 1970 called Obbligato, which is a play on words, right? Because obligato usually means a little bit slower, but obbligato, of course, taking the ghetto and adding that to it. Had a song called, album called Moon Rapping. And once again, the art of the sample is not using that particular whole song, but looking for a particular cut of the song and then transforming that particular slice of the album into a whole nother song. So we go into around the 3-minute mark here. This is the basis of so the producer of Scenario, who is Ali Shaheed Muhammad, just took that little clip right there and then used James Brown's breakbeats underneath it and completely changed that song to make Scenario, which is a whole different song. Then we come to it in homage, literally, to jazz. On that same album, The Low End Theory, Tribe Called Quest has a song literally called Jazz.
Stern, firm, and young with a laid-back tongue. The aim is to succeed and achieve at 21. Just like Ringling Brothers, I'll daze and astound. Captivate the mass cause the prose is profound.
Ali Shaheed Muhammad, the producer of that song, along with Q-Tip, who also produced the song as well, used Jimmy McGriff's classic Green Dolphin Street, which is a jazz standard, from his recording at the Cook County Jail. Maybe another time we could also talk about when music artists were actually allowed to go into jails and do concerts, which seems like a whole nother lifetime ago. But anyway, let's play that song just real quick. So once again, you take a small snippet of the song and you transform it into make a whole new different tune. Tribe Called Quest was so enamored with jazz that on one of the songs called Verses from the Abstract, they actually got Ron Carter. Ron Carter is the famous bassist of Miles Davis' second quintet group, that he had. They also had Herbie Hancock was in that group. Wayne Shorter was in that group. Tony Williams was the drummer. Ron Carter was on bass. And of course, Miles Davis was on trumpet. But Ron Carter actually came into the studio and played bass on Verses from the Abstract.
I had a dream about my man last night, and my man came by the studio, and his name is Busta Rhymes, in effect. Shaheed is in effect. Fife Didorg is in effect. Check it out and give me my spec. I'm moving, yes, I'm moving, cause my mouth is on the motor. Use the coast in the morning to avoid the funky odor. Can't help being funky, I'm the funky abstract brother. Funky in the sense, but I play the undercover. Once had a fetish.
And then later on in the song, Ron Carter just goes off extensively on this little solo during the song. And they have like a back and forth between Q-Tip, who's the main voice that you're hearing there, and Ron Carter. Not only was the sound of jazz important, but the aesthetic of it itself. That is being in like an homage to being in a jazz setting. So this perhaps is most famously known by Diggable Planets, who had a very, very famous song in 1992 called Rebirth of the Slick. And we'll play a portion of the video so that you can see how important the sound of jazz is to this early 1990s hip hop.
Like the breeze float straight out of our lids. Them, they got booed by these hard rock Brooklyn kids. Us floor rush when they DJ booming classics. You dig the crew on the fattest hip hop record. He tucks the kinks and sinks into the sounds. She frequents deep, fatter joints called undergrounds. Our funk zooms like you hit the Mary Jane. They flock to booms, man, boogie had to change. Who freaks the clips with mad amount percussion? Where kinky hair goes to unthought of dimensions. Why's it so fly? Cause hip hop kept some drama. When butterfly rock the light blue suede pumas. What by the cut? We push it off the corner. How was
So Diggable Planets, once again, another rap group out of New York, Brooklyn. And you can see this particular type of sound that's developing with a heavy influence from jazz. Jazz is the backbeat of it. It's sort of an homage in a way to spoken word poetry. So you can imagine that same type of aesthetic with groups like the Last Poets or the Watts Prophets, very much having a very heavy influence from that genre. And that song itself was a sample from Stretchin', 1978, which is, I think, the best year on record. I think that's put in record itself, the 1978 will go down in history as the absolute best year ever for music and for life. And it was a song by Art Blakey and the Messengers.
Is there a particular reason?
Now, counter to the Redman song, where he took the Isaac Hayes sample and sped it up, what Diggable Planets did was to take Art Blakey's song of Stretching and slow it way down and make it into a very, very different type of song. So if you hear that in the beginning again, it comes at you real quick. Let me see, I go back. So that bass part is playing in the very beginning of the song, but it's much, much slower. And that section right there is played, but it's once again slowed way, way down. Another rapper who comes out of that same region, it goes by the name of Kwame. Kwame was known for wearing polka dots. That was his thing. He had polka dot shirts and polka dot ties, had his hair cut in the shape of a Gumby. That was the name of the style. And it was black and gold. And I'll play, this video is very grainy, so I apologize for that. But what I want you to pay attention to, once again, is the throwback to jazz being a very important part.
Our scenario this evening is of a man and his plight. The setting takes place here in the Kit Kat Club tonight. His problem? He's invited a girl who he likes above all others, only to be confronted by her very jealous brothers. Their mission is to crush him in their blind, envious rage. But Kwame conquers all in the Bone Age.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Kit Kat Club is proud to present something new, something different. So would you please give a warm welcome for the rhythm.
Well, I came here for something funky to happen. Is this Christmas? Cause everybody's rapping. Prepare to get sparked by the song that I sing. No, my name is Martin Luther, but I'm considered the king. Yo.
So once again, you can see the homage being paid to that jazz club type scene, right? Very small, intimate venue, have a bass player, that piano player, and a drummer, which it's all a reflection of what a jazz club is supposed to be. Now, importantly, Kwame comes from an area of Queens, New York, in which he details that growing up in that area and who came out that area, it's not a surprise that the music was shaped in that fashion.
So in Queens, what was your experiences of music?
See,
growing up,
my neighborhood, you know, everybody likes to really big up their neighborhoods, but for me, I think my neighborhood is a very special place in Queens, and anybody can look it up. So if you go, the history of East Elmhurst, Corona, it's right next to LaGuardia Airport. So literally, you can, like my grandmother's house, my house, I can walk to the airport. And within that neighborhood, pre-rap, you had Ella Fitzgerald, Harry Belafonte, Louis Armstrong,
James Brown.
James Brown was in St. Albans, but he wasn't in that. I'm sorry. I want to say Dinah Washington, and a lot of influential blacks moved to this area of Queens. But then when you get into the hip hop era, you had Kid and Play, Herbie Lovebug, Eric B, Cool G Rap, myself, Salt and Pepper. We were all within a 3 to 5 block radius.
So these particular sounds that come out of these regions are not by chance. There's a great influence that is happening amongst the artists themselves. But in particular, as Kwame mentioned, this reference for Dinah Washington, Louis Armstrong, these people are all in their neighborhoods, literally. So this music of sort of soaking up information about the music itself, it's all part of that culture in those neighborhoods. Now, while jazz is very important, another distinctive sound from hip hop, of course, is beatboxing. And I'm not even going to attempt to beatbox right now, but one of the most probably famous beatboxers was Dougie Fresh. If you guys remember Dougie Fresh at all, he had a famous song called "The Show" along with Slick Rick.
Ladies and gentlemen, the most exciting stage show you've ever witnessed, appearing live.
Excuse me, Dougie Fresh.
Yes.
Have you?
So all of those, the vast majority of those sounds that you're hearing actually are coming from Dougie Fresh's mouth. So he mastered how to produce music from his mouth. But once again, we have this connection to jazz. And Dougie Fresh talks about being a musician as a young child in New York, and then what happens thereafter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the beatbox was made up in 80. I introduced it in 82, but I made it up in 81. See, because I started in 81 at Harlem World. That's where I started. And when I made it because I used to play the trumpet. And when I played the trumpet, there was a teacher in my class named Brother Lee. Brother Lee I went to IS 201. And Brother Lee, really quick, Brother Lee was in there and he said, what do you want to play? And I pointed to the percussions and the drums. He said, well, you can't play that yet. You got to play the trumpet. I said, well, why you ask me, Brother Lee? I mean, come on, baby. Damn. And he said, I understand. He said, but I want you to play the trumpet. So I took the trumpet home every day. And when I took the trumpet home, I would practice it, take the mouthpiece, boil it, do the whole thing, do all of the exercises. And then one day when I came back to school, Brother Lee was gone because they cut all the music programs in school. So I gave them the trumpet back and I was still walking home. And when I was walking home, I would pass by the mom and pop record shops. So at that time, Grandmaster Flash had out, it was a Friday night, everybody was breaking, the highs was right. And
Super
I would
rapping.
always hear, right, there you go. And I would always hear the bass line. And when I would hear the bass line, then all of a sudden I hear all of these other things. So I would walk back and forth and I would just kind of try to keep adding more and more and more ideas to the beat, to the point that I had maybe 7, 8, 9 things going on at the same time. I'm up there going, and I'm going crazy now, but I'm not thinking about it, right? I'm telling you, this is a true story. I'm not thinking about it. So then I go to Barry's house where we used to practice because
Barry
me
B.
and Will, Barry
Barry B is riding
That's
with
right.
me.
That's right. We go over there and practice because that was the practice house. Long story short, I'm in there doing the beatbox and I think I was doing Impeach the President because it was like, right? And I'm doing Impeach the President. And then all of a sudden, his mother comes in the room and said, that was a nice beat. I like that beat that was playing. And he said, Mom, that wasn't the record. That was him. And then he said, that was him. And she said, well, whatever it was a nice beat. And then he turned around and looked at me and said, yo, you know what? You should do that in the big park tomorrow. Because Mike and Dave was throwing jams out in the big park. He said, yo, you should call it the human beatbox. I said, I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. I'm not doing that. You're trying to make me look crazy. He said, I'm telling you, yo, what you just did was crazy. So then I went out to the big park. And when I did it, everybody lost their mind. And that was the beginning of the beatbox.
And that was 1981? That was 1981?
82.
Okay, 82.
Now, in addition, I should say, Brother Lee, when Dougie Fresh mentions Brother Lee, I looked for a picture of Brother Lee all over, but this connection will resonate pretty quickly. Brother Lee is Spike Lee's uncle. That's who he's talking about. Spike Lee's dad is Bill Lee, the very famous jazz musician. And Bill Lee's brother also played jazz as well. That's who was Dougie Fresh's teacher when he was in middle school. So this connection of jazz being very important to the development of hip hop cannot be overstated enough. Now, going back to this point about music being taken out of the schools, is in addition to beatbox, you have the sample machine becomes very important. The original purpose of the sample machine, of course, is to make jingles for commercials. However, when disenfranchised Black youth get a hold of it, they completely transform the sample machine. The incorporation of the beats into the machine does something that its intended purpose was never, ever meant to do. So going from left to right here, you have the very first sort of sample machine you see here on the left. In the middle, we have a MPC 2000, which is a very, very famous machine Rappers talk about it all the time in their songs. And then nowadays on the far right, you actually can get plugins and software you could just load up to your computer where the machine is not even needed anymore. So much of this stuff is done now straight digitally altogether. Now, thinking about this connection of schools and regions and sounds, we go back to the native tongues one more time, which is that Phife Dawg, who was a member of Tribe Called Quest, and Q-Tip both grew up together in St. Albans, Queens, on the same street. They went to church together since they were 2 years old. Q-Tip goes to the same high school, Murray Bergstrom High School in Manhattan, with Ali Shaheed Muhammad, who's on the left there, who would become the third member of A Tribe Called Quest, and all three members of the Jungle Brothers, who are on the far right. So all these connections are forming together, and all these sounds are coming together through a sharing of knowledge and culture. And we'll end with a famous song by Native Tongues, their 1989 hit, Buddy.
Peace. Prince Paul's the name, and I'm here to break down the definition of buddy. Buddy doesn't mean girl, or sex for that matter. Buddy simply means body. Bodies of all kind. So on that note, we begin with our video.
One's about the KOs, the knockouts out there who I call my buddy. Now just wait, we're gonna talk about buddy on this plate. But before we let the herd out the gate, make sure all the levels are straight out. The jungle, the brothers, Daylight Soul, on a roll. Black medallions, no gold, hanging out with bars, hanging out with mates. Buddy, y'all in my face. Fold the lap. Zembrowski must wear a cap, just in case the young girl likes to clap. Ain't for the win, but before I begin, I initiate the body with the swim.
Fold the neck. I'm the keeper from A Tribe Called Quest. And if your quest for the body, don't fess. If the Jimmy wants nothing but the best. The best? The best. Let's stick out the Jimmy and see what we can catch. Nets won't be needed unless
dancing on the dance floor. Girl, it's you that I adore. Step off stage, just scream for more. Native tongue got rhymes galore.
Fly buddy.
Don't you know you make me go nutty? I'm so glad that you're not a buddy duddy. Not too skinny and not too chubby.
Soft like silly putty. Miss Crabtree. I know that you're not mad at me, cause I
told you that it was your buddy. That was making me ever so horny. Jungleistically horny. I won't lie, I love D-U-D-D-Y, cause I never let it walk on by. When it comes to me and Jenny, I seem very serious. Like a pig free, buddy is an act that occurs on the lift. When Jimmy and Jenny start shooting the gift, boy, let me get shot, I won't even riff. On the dial, my buddy talks to me for a while. Plug 2 is the
to her tip.
On the A side or sometimes the flip. Word up, buddy is the bud to my daisy tree. And the looting to my do-re-mi. And the pleaser to my man Plug 3. Plug 3 gets the whole caboose behind the bush. My buddy like the way that I push. And like a champ just knock it on out. Never at once selling out. My buddy helps me to relock my soul. Keeping Jimmy in total control. Without buddy, I'd be on a roll.
Now as the lady, I thought the jungle and quest of soul were just maybe. Give me the chance to say that I get crazy. Due to the fact I let buddy amaze me. As a matter of fact, it crazes me in many ways. I decided that it was time for Moni Love to say. But when it comes to the buddy, you know that I don't play. Cause to me, chasing buddy is the perfect way to spend the day.
Oh, child, things are getting a little easier. Oh, buddy, it's easier.
Girl, I heard you looking for some.
All right, so we'll stop it there because I know we're running way over on time. Let's see. Stop sharing my screen here. And the last thing that I'll say is that this is just one particular sound in terms of like the sonic scape that comes out of hip hop. We literally can have a class probably on 10 different soundscapes that come from all over the country, and you can trace the origins of where these sounds come from various iterations of the blues to dance hall music. On the West Coast, they use a lot of funk music as the basis for the sounds. So it's a whole variety, and which makes hip hop a very genius art form in of itself. But before I go, I say any questions at all? Oh, if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself.
I have a question. How can you go through the explanation or explain how the two groups were able to agree to allow for sampling?
Okay, so a lot of early hip hop, they just took the song. They didn't get clearances or anything, right? It was sort of like the Wild Wild West. As hip hop became a clear revenue moneymaker and the record industry really got involved, then the clearance became much more of an issue. But a lot of those early hip hop songs from the 80s, in particular the early 80s, a lot of those samples were not cleared. They had to go back retroactively and clear them. A lot of times nowadays, the artists actually will work with the musicians who made the original to work out a deal. Sometimes there are artists who just refuse. So very famously, Anita Baker never ever allowed any of her music to be sampled at all, right? There was only one sample that was used by Anita Baker, and that was not cleared, and she sued the hell out of those those folks, right? Prince was also very famously very rarely allowed artists to sample his songs. The reason for that is that Prince was adamant that he didn't want record companies making money off of his music, because he realized that when an artist sampled a song, that money that was being generated from the sample revenue was not going to the artist.
No.
It was going to the owners of the record company. And so Prince said, unless you own your masters, you cannot sample my music at all, because he was adamant that the money should be going directly to the artists who are using the sample. So now it's much more clear. Sometimes we have famous cases, as in the case with it was with Pharrell and Robin Thicke as well.
That's what we brought up in our group, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So we're like, well, how come he couldn't do it and everybody else was doing it? I mean, why was it a big deal? And did they do this? Did they do any lawsuits retroactively?
Yes, there are lots of the record industry is full of sampling court cases right now. But once again, it's not the artists often who are getting paid, it's labels who are going after artists. By and large, musicians will hook up other musicians as long as they call them up and ask them and say, like, we'll pay you X amount and Z for money. But the record labels themselves, they want that long-term money that comes from a sample being used.
Does it matter how long the sample was? Like you mentioned earlier that it was like 10 seconds on one song. You just kept on reusing the same 10 seconds over and over again. Did that make a difference?
Yeah.
In lawsuits?
It's a lot, right? So it's how long the sample is, how much of the sample was the basis of the song. It could be that you just take 2 or 3 chords, but those 2 or 3 chords are the whole song. So that's much different than taking 2 and 3 chords and they're just like a snippet of a song. So there are this gets into the legalese of it, but there's a whole breakdown of how it all works, like how much of a song you use and how much of it is in your song itself. Peggy has a question. I see the hand raised.
Did they ever do a song without any sampling of both songs? Did any songs made that were popular that didn't include a sample from another?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, yeah.
Can you name one real? Not like I'm gonna know it, but anyway. Anyway, just throw it out there. I'll ask my daughters. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a hip hop group who by the name of the Roots, for example. So the Roots are now probably known as being the house band for Jimmy Fallon.
Right.
But they're out of Philly, and they're a band. So many of their songs are all original songs. So and they have about 7 or 8 albums, maybe more than that at this point. So the Roots are one example of that. Yeah, and I have to say too, the Roots went to a very famous high school, not all of them, but several of them in Philadelphia, which would be the equivalent of the Los Angeles County School for the Arts. But it was the same school. They were in the same class with Boys to Men, for example, was at the school at the same time, and Emile LaRue, the singer as well, was there with them. So you can trace back a lot of the connections to schools as well in terms of musicians. Washington Prep put out a lot of rappers as well. So the rapper Yo-Yo and the rapper WC both were at Washington Prep at the same time together.
I just met with some people from Washington Prep because I'm an alum. I'm a former teacher. I retired from Washington Prep, and we were trying to think of the male that came from there. So you just now said it.
Yep.
We knew about Yo-Yo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
She was rude to me one day too, and I caught her.
Set her straight, huh? Set her straight.
No, I couldn't find her. You know, she cursed me out. But you know what? I wanted to say that there is genius. I always saw it with the rap musicians, but I also see a genius, and this is not to flatter you or anything, but to be able to find these different categories like you did, and to have that fine ear to recognize the different groups that you put them in. That's not your specialty, is it?
No, I just love music. I think a big part of that is being forced to be in a car for about 3 days straight during the summer, and you have to listen to your parents' music on these long road trips.
Yes. I do that to my kids.
Right. A 36-hour road trip from LA to DC will do that to you. But in all seriousness, I have a love for music. That's partially why I don't really study music, because if you study something, you come to hate it. That's what I've learned. But I really love music, so I refuse to study it in that way. So I'm trying to keep my love for it. And I don't think my wife necessarily appreciates it, because we go down these YouTube rabbit holes and she gets real tired real quick. And so I was like, go to bed. I'll listen to this. There's another hand. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Thank you for that comment. Let's see. This says Godfrey Snyder, I think it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna let the Mrs. ask you a question first. She had a couple of questions during your.
I just have one question. I said, is your anything, your background in music, does that may have a little bit to do with your enjoyment of music?
Yeah. So that part too. So I should say it was just those long car rides, which definitely helped. But I grew up playing music as well. So I played the flute and clarinet when I was younger. Then I transitioned over to the trumpet and French horn, and the French horn was my main instrument all the way through college. But yeah, so I think that's also part of it. But I really didn't get down with classical too much, even though I always had to play it. I preferred jazz and hip hop. But French horn really isn't used in jazz. Miles Davis used the French horn on Bertha Cool. But other than that, this guy named Julius Watkins, who is a jazz French horn player, but there's really not a lot of jazz French horn musicians.
Mr. Sojourner, question. When we were growing up, we listened to a lot of R&B, And we would also look at songs and say, was this sampled? Was this sounds like another song? It wasn't as much, I guess, as in the hip hop stage. But I remember hearing Alicia Keys' first song, and somebody alerted me to the fact this is a James Brown song.
This is the man's world.
It's the man's world. So but I think that was much more highlighted during the hip hop era, right? Where they used samples than before.
Yeah, well, so yes and no, which is that jazz musicians would always take a standard and change it up to make it their own. Charlie Parker was famous for doing that. So Charlie Parker and Miles Davis, when they played in New York, they would take these jazz standards, such as like on Green Dolphin Street, and just speed it way up. And then it would turn into a whole different song. So it's not exactly the same, but there is a pattern of that was already present. And of course, this was the classic between the sacred and the profane, which is that a lot of the blues songs were actually church songs, but just played on Sunday nights, right? So you just take what you learn a Sunday morning, and then you go to the speakeasy on Sunday night and you play that same song. Instead of talking about Jesus, you're talking about Laura or somebody, right? Like you just change up the whole name and shape of it.
Damien.
Yes, Peggy.
You're gonna have a part 2 because I want to get into that hard rap that I don't understand or like, and I really need an explanation. And my friends, when they did the rap halftime for the game, the Super Bowl game, and I was just saying I love the game and I love that Compton was represented and all like that. And my friends that are in my age brackets, I didn't understand it. I didn't like it. They shouldn't have had it up there. So we need an explanation, Damien. You got to help us out. Help us out, please. Part 2. We need part 2.
Part 2. Say part 2 could be focused on the West Coast for part 2, since part 1 was on New York. Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm looking at the chat here. Let's see here. Anything that I missed out? Oh, 1978 being the greatest year ever. Yeah. So that was the year that the world actually was reborn, September specifically. And under music paradigm, it was made anew on September 22nd, 1978, and gave birth to a whole new form of being. Yeah. Also known as Damien Sojoyner was born on that day. Check the sources, right? Yes. And there was a question about fake news. There was a question about
Check the source.
in 1984, the world crashed and came to an end, but had to be remade again. Were there Luther samples? Yes, Luther was sampled, but the two I meant to say this earlier. The two most heavily sampled artists are James Brown and George Clinton. Those two artists are sampled the most. Unfortunately, George Clinton is not seeing virtually any money from that at all. There's a lawyer that it's shady circumstances that got ownership of the majority of George Clinton's music and masters. James Brown was a notoriously shrewd businessman. So the James Brown estate, he didn't give up anything at all, virtually anything. And a matter of fact, James Brown was very keen because the Funky Drummer wasn't on any original release. It was released in the 1980s as a compilation of sort of like James Brown's greatest hits. And ironically then becomes sort of the most used sample in the history of the world. All right. So thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I very much enjoyed myself being able to meet with everybody. Like I said, hopefully at one point we'll be able to do this in person.
Thank you so much, Damien. I thank you for your time. Our members enjoyed I've had many laughs. We all had. I hope to hopefully schedule another class with you. I know our members would love that. So thank you for your time. Thank you everyone else for joining in and being participants and just having a really live discussion. So thank you everyone for your time, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Great class.
Thank you. Great class.
Great class. Love it.
Great class.
Elaine, does he take after you?
No.
Definitely.
Everybody knows who he took after.
Okay.
Still trying to figure that out. Kim.
Sorry.
All right.
Thank you for encouraging your son. Thank you, Damien, so much.